creative production challenges that we're seeing in the marketplace, working with clients at Celtra. So just real quick, just the agenda, and I'll introduce myself. So we'll cover the kind of the creative challenges of in-house teams. What does it mean, and is there a content gap, and fixing workflows to free up time for the creative teams today, and then designing for pixel perfection and what that means, and of course combating dull and repetitive creative. So just 20 seconds about myself. I joined Celtra in 2020 in of August, came over from Adobe, and I spent 4.5 years there, working on the DSP side, and got to Adobe through acquisition of a small DSP company called TubeMogul. But I saw a tremendous opportunity here at Celtra to help brands kind of move forward with automation in some of the creative workflows that many of the audience today are probably being or feeling today. So let's go through some of the quick challenges or high-level challenges that our clients are conveying to us. So 86% of marketers say that their creative teams need more time to devote to the creative process. There's just no time for great ideas today. Challenge number two, maybe your team wants to run a little bit faster. 91% of marketers would love to achieve faster time to market. And what ultimately that will help a lot of our clients achieve is top line growth. And challenge number three that we're hearing consistently is dull creative. I don't think anyone enjoys boring and repetitive conversations in today's marketplace. Challenge number four, stories are resonating, right? Because we're kind of hours out of stories to watch on Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu. I'm totally out of things to watch. There's just no stories to be really consumed. So when we're engaging with brands, we love to engage in the story format. But if anyone during the Q&A wants to recommend anything to watch, I would love to hear some of your recommendation. I think the last movie I watched was, oh man, I Care a Lot on Netflix, which I highly recommend. So moving on, the last challenge that we're constantly seeing is brand governance. It's kind of like that switch and bait story where you have a lot of brands now who are doing rebranding, but you'll see a disconnect between old and new branding or just creative treatments. 60% of the consumers, our audience, distrust brands when their designs don't match the brand's website, app, or e-commerce store. So when we talk about the velocity of e-commerce, the enemy really is the traditional creative process that exists today. And just kind of walking through what we call here is the content gap. This purple or pink line are all of the creatives that our clients and yourself are having to create today with the fragmentation of all of the different screens and channels, all the multiple campaigns that you'll have to initiate to promote products and services. And the content refreshes all the time, typically with tight deadlines across your channels. And a lot of our clients are trying to test and optimize against all of their creatives and stories to see what's landing best with their audience. One of the key takeaways from last year, which is a challenging year for everyone, is that as the creative needs are increasing, the production resources are stagnant or declining. So this gap is what a lot of our clients are struggling with today. And here's just some of the, I would say, frequently seen symptoms that are communicated to us. You know this better than I do. It's expensive to scale content. Templates are great. We all use them, but it's also dangerous. So if you're using a widely used template, you run the risk of some of that storytelling to look very similar and generic to many other brands. And it's slow and cumbersome for the creative process, where a lot of our clients and partners are using emails, zip files, Slack, and whatnot. And it just drags that process out. And then you have inconsistent design down the production line. We've all seen as consumers ads or creatives in the wild where, let's say, the model's face is chopped off or text and copy is not in the right place, etc. So these are just some of the symptoms we're seeing today. And let's look at some of the old school production workflows that's kind of symptomatic of what's happening today. So this is a kind of a crayon drawing on PowerPoint. A concept is approved, and then you have this copy paste repeat marathon within your creative teams. You're manually making changes, exporting zip files, or placing the creatives in PowerPoint for review and feedback. And then you're having to email all of these attachments and initiating a feedback marathon. But wait, you'll have someone on the media team or the marketing stakeholder says, oh, there's a typo, or, oh, we're going to change the call to action. And you have to kind of go back to home base and start this whole process all over again. And the key point here is there's missed marketing moments where, while all of this is going on, the audience, us consumers, are in the wild engaging with all of these brands. And here's just one perfect example of a not missed marketing moment. For those who saw the Super Bowl, I had to do a triple take. I had to pause the television and rewind. It was like a 5-second Super Bowl ad. And this was a great example of how brands are in real time able to kind of highlight what is going on in the marketplace and try to take advantage of that. So I thought that was quite creative execution. So when you take a look at typical workflows that exist today, on the left side, you'll have all of the traditional Creative Cloud and or other solutions that creative teams are using. And then on the other extreme, you have distribution, all the endpoints that you are trying to communicate and land with your audience. But in the middle, traditionally today, it's still human beings working really hard and trying to connect the dots. So what we would recommend is to look at partners that will enable almost superpowers through automation and software. Hint, hint. So taking a look at cloud, we want to basically recommend creative automation in the cloud. It enables you to look at production, review, and distribution in a much more efficient and streamlined manner, where you're always on brand, yet flexible. Elements within the creative can still be automated by separating content from design. You can still have stakeholders log in and change and swap out messaging, calls to action, product images, or even localization in languages. When you look at review, rather than having to go from multiple platforms and software with file attachments, by using creative automation, you can have all of that reiteration and feedback loop in one place so that you can reiterate much quicker and go to market much faster for distribution. Lastly, for distribution, by using creative automation, you're able to either plug directly and push via API to your distribution endpoints, or easily export via HTML and zip files, etc. So just really quick, what we're seeing at Celtra, clients like Spotify are seeing a 4x increase in their capacity for creative volume, while reducing their campaign production cycle in half. When you take a look at designing for pixel perfection and what that means, I'll kind of go through that. So here's just some highlight blown up examples of inconsistent designs. As I mentioned in the beginning, consumers distrust a brand when they see executions of storytelling in this fashion. One, it's disjointed, and there's this lack of collaboration or easy access to design assets. Two, local teams taking liberties in redesigning already approved campaign assets is what we'll see in the marketplace. We would definitely recommend consider templatizing creative scaling within your workflows today. So by centralizing brand guidelines, you're basically also able to democratize activation, and flexibility. Your target audience is quite different. Oh, the slides are just kind of jumping ahead here. Sorry about that. Your target audience is different geos, so your messaging and stories should also be different as well. So should your stories and opportunities to engage, you're always on brand. Just to really quickly wrap up here, how to combat dull and repetitive creative is one area that we'll focus on. We recently interviewed Miles Pendis. He's a performance marketing manager at Public Goods. He said that this is, on our brand side podcast, which I would highly recommend you go listen to. Creative is what drives performance, and small variation changes can potentially end up having huge impacts on results. For another client of ours, Vistaprint, they have a unique appreciation of powerful creative and variety because they're producing hundreds of thousands of assets and they're trying to localize for 12 different language markets. So just using creative automation helps their speed and time to market. Here's some easy ways to create variety in your existing workflow without sacrificing design and quality, which is super important as well. So here's an example of backgrounds. It's easily scalable. You can access photos or product or mix of backgrounds. It's simple yet effective. Price can be replaced with a call to action. You can implement this today to kind of get some variety. Another example is typographic. So you might have a high impact sales message. There's little to no assets required to implement this. It's extremely flexible for kind of on the go changes. And then you have promotions. So if you have sales or promotions that are going on, it's easy to create templates for video, for lifestyle, just to, a product-led design template that will help scale to thousands once combined with e-commerce product feeds that you may have if you're in the e-com business or you have an e-com store. And then you have variety on demand. So adding variety to your designs while keeping thousands of assets true to your brand is possible today. One of the key factors that a lot of our clients and partners have told us is they want to scale, but they're afraid of losing that control and that pixel perfect fidelity in their distribution. So just 3 takeaways before we wrap up and open to Q&A. If you keep repeating it, try to automate those steps. Takeaway number 2, cloud collaboration increases speed to market and will hopefully unlock time so that your creative team can do big picture, bigger splash type ideas. And takeaway number 3 is design excellence and high volume can work hand in hand. They should not be mutually exclusive in your workflows. So I'll wrap up and kind of open this up to Q&A. Hey, Isabel.
Hey, Matt. Sorry about that. It always takes a second to come back on. So let me just open up the Q&A. We can tackle some of these.
Should I stop sharing the screen?
Yeah. You can stop sharing. Vishal, I actually can't see the Q&A since I wasn't a panelist. If you wouldn't mind just chatting those over to me, I can pull one up from here. So actually, let's start with maybe a general one if that works for you. I think Super Bowl is still fresh in some people's minds as we're now seeing like the ad repeats on TV. So one of the questions we have is just which Super Bowl ad do you feel tackled storytelling in the most effective way? We know you can't play favorites, but if there's any that really stood out to you.
Oh, wow. Outside of the Reddit example, I thought I think it was the Jeep commercial, was really good at storytelling, only because it took almost the entire ad unit for me to figure out who the advertiser was, who the brand was.
Do you feel like that's so funny you say that because, I've seen whether it's on Twitter or just online, a lot of people are saying, we like when you don't know whose ad it is. And some people are like, oh, we don't like when it's like a completely separate topic. Like some brands are just trying to tackle this topic and they try to make it relevant for their commercial. But I think interesting because it keeps you watching.
Yeah, for sure. I think it keeps us on our toes as consumers, right? When we're trying to figure out who the actual brand is that's telling the story, which was, I thought, really interesting. And also the messaging of coming to the middle was very poignant and on time. So I thought it was a great execution of it.
Yeah,
However, there was some post Super
of course.
Bowl drama with the actual, actor, or in this case,
Yeah,
the singer involved in the ad. I didn't want to mention the name.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
Well, moving into another question from our audience, kind of in the same light. How do you think brands can insert themselves authentically into stories that resonate with consumers? So, I guess one example I'm thinking about off the top of my head is the Chipotle commercial, which tied their mission into environmental justice, working with local laborers and local farms. I thought they did a good job. How do you think brands can leverage that?
Wow, this is above my pay grade. I wish, just as my wife is a brand manager for a pharma company. She actually produces TV ads. So
Oh,
this is a
awesome.
question that she would
For her.
definitely jump in. But I think it's just, I'm going to put on my consumer lens, right? Like, as a consumer, I think when someone is authentic in their storytelling, it just resonates better with me. As a professional working with brands for 20 years, there's a lot of key components of, what's all kind of like the story arc of their existing brand, and try to stay fresh, but maintain that story arc is important. So they could stay on brand, but still tell new stories without washing down their brand. But as a consumer, I think it's just authenticity
Yeah.
is what I gravitate towards.
Yeah, no, agree. Like for me, at least seeing Chipotle's, it wasn't like this completely random topic they decided to be a proponent of. Like they've always kind of talked in their ads about, their commitment to environmentalism and sourcing local. So, didn't feel too out of place. Um, so another question we have are what's on the horizon for Celtra? Any new product launches, enhancements, innovations? Not sure what's confidential, what's not.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little bit, I have to play close to the chest here on that. We're always shipping new features and products, very in line with what our customers are requesting all the time. And, as some of you may know, Celtra is kind of evolving, and we added creative automation last year to our portfolio from creative enablement. So this side of the business is fairly like a startup within a sustained and larger company. And I think the timing is right, because our clients and even our partners, agencies that we were engaged with, are telling us that there's just a massive demand for content being
Yeah.
driven by, just what happened last year, obviously, because we're all at home and we have more time to consume on all our devices. And it's just creating this fast forward button moment for all of the brands to really get their storytelling engine in place. And it's just creating more demand for
Yeah,
content.
no, definitely. I think on that note, some people want to know, we got a question of how can creative automation help brands make their performance driven campaigns more interested instead of just running product shots?
Yes, so that's a great question. I would say, it's a push pull for what we see. Typically, media buying teams and brand marketers want to have a breadth of creative to optimize and test against, but with deadlines and running fast, it oftentimes limits them to produce all of these assets. So
Yeah.
I would say having a variety of assets and creative treatments to test is number one, whoever they're using. But it's a challenge because a lot of times there's that human element of creative production where either in-house teams, agencies, freelancers, they're all using different workflows, and it's just tough to get um, that engine going or started going. Because I know a lot of brand marketers who are like, oh, I would love to do this, but I know if I want it, it's going to take 4 months and it's going to
Right.
be this cost. So they just stop before they even start.
Right. Because it's like, will this topic even be relevant in 4 months? Especially, you know, some of these that are maybe not necessarily crisis driven, but culturally driven. I mean, things move so fast. You want to make an ad about something, and 4 months later, it's like, is that topic
Exactly.
even relevant anymore? Or does it still sit well with consumers?
Exactly. And I'm sure that in the audience, I don't know if anyone will admit it, but there's tons of ads that are running and stories that are running that have old logos.
Oh,
And a ton of
interesting.
them have gone rebranded. They've all rebranded, right?
Right.
It happens all the time. I see this all the time on the DSP side from my experience. Like there's just old ads running in the wild, and we as consumers still see that.
Yeah, and it's funny because my background personally is in the political communications world. So when we make ads, it is for the next, you know, we start running them the next day. So it's so interesting to see. And I was personally not on the ad side, so I can't even speak to what their workflow was, but it was expedited to an extreme because something would happen in the world and we would launch an ad, you know, the next day or 2 days later in response. So it was, you know, kind of like what we're talking about on steroids a bit. Um,
Yeah.
one of the questions we got was, how has COVID affected the creative process, and what are some strategies that you'd recommend for other creative teams to stay connected and work through these creative ideas while physically apart?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is more of a general of just communication. This leads to just all of us being remote, and we've seen from our side a challenge of teams that used to be highly functional together in the same office, having to really be decentralized and even more so of that repetitive, redundant, like email and slacking each other files and zip files. Um, to try to connect more, whether it's through a platform or through workflow, just to, because just being decentralized, I think slows down that creative, not only speed, but kind of like that. How do I explain this? Like just the when you bump into someone in the hallway and you have an idea,
Yeah.
right? Like that spark is kind of hard to get sometimes working remote.
Yeah, no,
So to
definitely.
work and
Especially,
focus on that.
right. And I can definitely see that in the creative environment. Like it's very hands-on. I'm so sorry someone's talking about me.
No, it's fine.
We're at home.
Yeah,
So I can definitely see that for the creative, you know, creative teams, how important it is to be in person. And I'm so interested actually to see, and maybe you already have seen this, like, you know, we have Zoom for our video calls, everyone's using it. We're, I think, using Slack more. What different technologies will be developed is for those in the creative field? You know,
yeah,
if
no,
there's going to be an equivalent like Zoom where you can, you know, Zoom where you can write things and be a bit more interactive.
yeah, for sure. Like I try to do some creative stuff on the side, like when I can on the weekend, but I can't even imagine for creative teams. It must be hard to be decentralized right now. Because even on working with clients, right? Like I'm on Zoom calls all day with clients. I kind of miss that, spontaneous interaction that you get being in person.
Yeah.
So it's hard, but I think we're all trying to manage. But that's definitely one area where if you can engage and have more ideation sessions to unlock some of that creative thinking.
Yeah, no, definitely. It looks like we have one more question from the audience, and I know, again, you probably can't pick any favorites, but are there any brands that you're seeing that are doing a good job of this in terms of creative automation? Anyone's? I know you had a few included in the keynote, um,
Yep.
but yeah, any ones that you
Uh,
want to flag who've done a great job with this?
yeah, outside of the Spotify use case I shared, I would say without naming names, like we work with a ton of like I would say the top two sports apparel companies. I think they're doing a great job, right? And when you take a look at all of their product lines, it's impressive to have to market multiple categories and products, but also multiple genders and target audiences and
Yeah,
how they're ideating and creating for all of those different segments. Because when you talk about DCO and optimization, it's only as good as the creative, right?
yeah,
If you only have, let's say, five creative units and you're trying to do DCO, it's going to start to have law of diminishing returns, and you start having to feed the beast with more creative that lands with the audience. So I would say definitely sports apparel is doing a good job on that front. And I think, we'll start to see pick up in transportation and auto, because they have tons of products and portfolios that they need to tell stories. It's a big ticket purchase.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's spot on. It's always interesting to see the auto commercials because you can do anything with them. You could be anywhere, and in terms of just like where they're putting you as a consumer in those commercials, it's always really interesting. Yeah. They have a lot of space for creative.
And I live downtown in Manhattan, and it's funny to always see like the Brooklyn Bridge shot, right? And then you have like, so I always look for that too. So
no, it's funny.
But that's another thing, right? Like I love car commercials, but some of the locations start to repeat across brands. You could think of that a location as a template, right? Like you always see like Valley Fire in Las Vegas. Yeah, exactly. So it gets harder and harder.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's really interesting actually, especially as we talk to more of our automotive partners. Well, that is it from us for today. Anything else you want to close out with?